everybody. Sorry you had to use a backup today. Got a substitute. Leo was doing great, but she was exposed to a little bit of flu, a little bit of COVID, I think, and just that caution. Didn't want to make anybody else sick. So apologies for, it's like the Mavs. You got some deep backup right now. We'll do the best we can. Again, welcome. I'm going to read the names of the executive committee members just to make sure that we have a quorum present. If you are here, please respond present. Dr. El Melville, John McPherson, present. John Becker, Simon Chen, Laura Davies,
Present.
Ricky Garcia,
Present.
Rusty Jaggers,
Present.
Cameron Johnson,
Present.
Harold Montgomery,
Present.
James Stanton, Tracy Scotto Jones, Christine Vandevelde.
Present.
We'd like to begin with a couple thank yous and one heads up. First, we'd really like to thank those board members that attended the science fair this weekend. Always a great event. And I think it went very, very well. We'd also...
Our highest participation we've had.
Fantastic. We'd also like to thank especially James and those of you who served as judges in the mock trial tournament. Such great credit to James. We have 5 campuses involved in that event. I know some of you may have served as judges. And just great to see that engagement, great to see that progress and all the energy from the students. And then one heads up, just our staff appreciation event is coming up on February 21st. I think it's from 9 to 11. It's a great way if you haven't done it. I think most people have probably done it because you see the schools and get involved. Laura, Christine, anything you want to add about that event?
No, you'll enjoy it and want to do it again as soon as you do it. So I just encourage you to find a date, or if the date works, sign up.
So February 21st, 9 to 11. And if somebody needs to sign up, Yasmin?
I sent an email out last week with the link, but I'll send it again just as a friendly reminder.
I'll do it myself. And then next, I want to note a couple little tweaks or adjustments to the process for the meeting today and to the agenda. You may have seen them. And these are just to give all of us as board members kind of full context before we get into the details that we often get into. So one part of the meeting, and we'll just do this in just a second, is Yasmin's going to kind of take us through big objectives for the meeting, things we need to do as a board to be supportive of management and decisions we need to make. Let's get an overview of that before we get into the meeting. And then after our community forum, Dr. Washington is going to give us a president's report, just to help us all see our core educational mission through her eyes. So what's on our mind, what's going great, where are we focused on improvement. And again, just so we have that context before we get into all the other issues that we discuss as a board. Okay? Fantastic. I think next, Alex, we have our community forum.
That's correct, and we do not have any community members present on our next agenda.
All right, I already got it slightly out of order, so Yasmin, if we come back to you, it's okay.
That's perfect. Ready to go. Thank you. So hello, good evening again, everyone. As John shared, I just want to set some big objectives for today's meeting and also in the context of why it matters or why do we do some of the things that we do in our board meetings. So John already shared during the president's report, we want to make sure we're always also staying strategic and big picture with the board because there are a lot of times because this work is so broad, we have to go real narrow on a topic, but we're always thinking broadly on how we best serve our kids. So Remy will share that today. It's the first time for both of us to share these reports, so please share with us feedback afterwards. Was it helpful or not, or how we can do better? Priscilla is then going to walk us through a required TEA item on our targeted school improvement plans. Whenever we have a school or schools that miss a certain performance criteria around academics, TEA requires that we come to the board and share with you which schools those are. As Priscilla will share, those schools have robust plans to make improvements that have to get reviewed by TA and supported with consultants' help and all the things. But that is why we're coming forward today to make sure, just as a board, we know which schools are receiving those targeted school improvement going to approve for a second time our PSF application towards our bonds, because to give us a little bit more financial flexibility, we want to slightly increase the package. It's pretty nominal, and Leslie will walk through that. And then, of course, staying fully enrolled. It's not only important to us knowing we're fulfilling our mission of serving as many children as we can, giving them access to all the great things we do at Uplift, but it's also important that we can continue to invest in our day-to-day work. So that will be, Amanda will help us wrap up our meeting before we vote on minutes and things like that with our enrollment update. As just a reminder of our network strategic priorities, these were the things we shared at the board retreat with you all, and I want to just regularly bring them back up so we all have them as context. The most important thing, right, is that we're driving academic performance of our scholars. That's why we're here. We also want to make sure our kids have a great experience. And so when you hear about things like mock trial and the spelling bee, which is this upcoming weekend, or science fair, we believe those are equally important for kids feeling very connected to their schools, which allows them to lean in more on their academic experience with us. So we see them hand in hand. As you all know, we spent a lot of time expanding our career pathway work and continue to plan on continuing to expand that work in the years to come. We want to make sure we are fiscally healthy for the reasons I shared just a minute ago. We can't do the work and have, make the best investments in our mission if we don't have the resources to do it. And then, the final point on this list here of our priorities is we need to be internally an effective organization, and particularly between our central office and our campuses, because we are a big network, and even though we're big, we don't want that to be getting in the way of how we effectively work with them. So it's just a reminder of what we're tackling. And then just lastly, from my standpoint, I want to remind you of our board goals that, again, we communicated at the retreat. And in orange font, you can just see where we're at towards them. So we want to raise $14 million in philanthropic funds. We're currently at $11 million. You can see our budgeted enrollment there. We measure it right, both in terms of actual number of children, and then pre-K is also captured at a half funding rate. So you can see both of those numbers there. We're above target. We're above target on attendance as well. We won't see staff retention. It's a metric we report on annually, but we do have the lowest vacancy rates we've had in the past several years. So you can think of that as a proxy for positivity on retention. Remy will continue to share out some high-level points on how we're doing overall academically. Oh, please, sir.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
The first point on the enrollment, or the second sub-bullet, the goal of 22,117, is that counting the pre-K?
I have, but
That's
I
what
have,
you're
yes. And so we're about 500 kids above where we need to be there. And obviously we track both numbers because we actually serve full children, and we also want to monitor withdrawals. But we also need to be mindful for Leslie's calculation, and that's why we show both numbers. So thank you for that clarification there. On the academic metrics, we were really excited on college readiness rates. At the end of December, we were basically where we were at the end of last school year. So we have all second semester, right? Like we were very confident about our end of year target for this year. And then through both the Hammond grant and the additional Bluebird funding we received, we're well on target to hit the number of seniors and alumni who are connected to healthcare pathway programs. So this is pretty much a good news story, and we are really pleased with that. So I'm happy to entertain any other questions that you all have. Yes.
So I'm involved with an organization that is sort of addressing the anxiety in the Hispanic community with regard to ICE.
Yes.
And I am wondering, are you seeing a drop since you
Yes.
took this data?
Yes.
And what kind of things are you all doing to
Sure.
deal with the students and their
Yes.
family?
Yes. So we had our lowest attendance day of the year last Tuesday. We were at a network level of 89%. We then rebounded on Wednesday to about 92%. On Thursday, we were at about 93.8%. And then on Friday, we were back to 91 point something. 50%, but Fridays are a lower day for us. So right now, we're about 1% to 1.5 percentage points off the entire network average, but obviously some schools are feeling that much more meaningfully, and we're very mindful of that. So we had a school yesterday that reported in at 80%. So I would say of the 45, there's about 10 that we're paying close attention to, and the rally cry that we gave to our school leaders just today was everybody needs to pay attention to attendance. And if you're not one of those 10 schools that finds themselves in a more, in a more fragile place right now, it is your responsibility to over-deliver on attendance so we can provide some cushion and breathing room for the families at the schools that are in communities more impacted. The good news story, right, is because we are having some positive upside on the financial health side, we have a couple of weeks where we can weather enrollment being off target. We can't go the full year that way, but we can navigate that. And then with regards to messaging, we did message out directly to families and staff what our protocols are in the situation that we do have any form of law enforcement for any reason on our campus. So everyone understood what the protocols are in those situations.
Do we know for a fact that this is what's driven the absentee level?
We're fairly confident. Families are calling and telling us why they're not sending their children to
So
school.
they're afraid of,
Yeah, they are afraid of, because schools have historically been considered what they call a safe location, where immigration officials were not allowed to come to schools, churches, or hospitals, and that was recently removed, that protection status. And because of the news it's gotten, families are aware of that, and they're just broad concerns. Some specific, and again, I want to be very clear, it's not like it's widespread across the network, it's in very specific communities where there's just obviously like naturally more anxiety or concern that are happening there. But our parents are pretty clear with us, which is very fine.
Yeah, I just was gonna add, like, I think to your point, with some schools for sure, but it is a murky thing, because cold and flu is like hit staff and kids pretty hard. And like the cold weather, we also usually see it. And so we rewind back last year around MLK Day, we actually had the day off, that Tuesday off, because of bad weather. So like, even compared to last year, to give us some ideas, it's been actually pretty tricky to get like a really strong read on some of it. But I think for campuses where parents have been very communicative around like why they're keeping their kids at home, I think they've been making those calls, so we do know those reasons. But I do think the weather and the illness is also making it a little bit tricky as we come back in January.
Yeah, and kind of fair to call it a very new and very ongoing development that they're paying a lot of attention to, I think. So we might have more questions than answers, but somebody to pay a lot of attention to.
Well, I've heard very clearly that making sure everybody understands.
Yeah.
We got that out, I believe, on Wednesday, if not, it was Thursday, so we got it out pretty quickly, so our parents felt comfortable as much as possible.
Thank you, Yasmin. Again, we just want to set kind of big picture, keep the big goals in front of us in these meetings, because we do have lots of detailed things we always have to address as a board. In that same vein, we've asked Wendy and the president role just to give us, again, the world from where she sits, fairly high level, what we're excited about, what we're concerned about, where we're focused next, as a way to make sure we're keeping our core academic mission in front of us as a board, given that we have so many other functional topics we have to cover, and given that some of our results only come out every so often. So, Ruby, with that, I'll hand it over to you.
For sure. So, love to start off with when I think in Yasmin's report, there's so much to celebrate from the first semester. I think it was probably one of the strongest first semesters we've had in a long time. And I'm super proud of the work that everyone's doing. And Yasmin did share those first two bullets here, or the first bullet here around math performance and primary, especially with our focus on our primary learning acceleration schools. And Priscilla and Jonathan presented a few more pushing, just because we got those good results, we have to continue pushing in the classroom. And I think that's attributed to like really being focused on our training that we're giving our teachers. In secondary, we started in the spring last year and throughout the summer and during the year to give training. And I know Priscilla and Jonathan have worked really hard, especially with the third grade teachers, and giving them the training back with the curriculum. We do have a standard curriculum in math, and so I think that's starting to pay off with math instruction. We also launched our first dual language program, the first for Uplift, for pre-K through first grade at 5 different primary campuses. So that's been super exciting to learn from this experience, and one that helps us be, one, just responsive to what a lot of our families have wanted for so long, but two, also be competitive. There are a lot of surrounding districts that already have dual language programs. I think it's just an appreciation for our students becoming multilingual, because many of our students definitely come to these standards, but we will soon have students at some point as we develop the programs who will enter into bilingual studies as they start off in primary. And so we're just super fortunate that the team has had a really strong start to the dual language program. When we think about economic mobility, obviously we talk so much about Uplift Heights. High school, everybody knows about it. It's been like the shining star for us. But I think one of the things that I can't say enough about is the power of an intentional education experience for kids, and how when it's connected and purposeful, how kids will stay at the school. That is our proof point, that if we can strengthen our academic core programs, make them meaningful, we'll see students stay at our schools. And so we have a 98% retention rate, which is phenomenal for any school, and definitely in ninth grade when there's just so many other options that kids can choose from. So we're super proud of the work that the team is doing in the future that our kids will have as a result. The other part was the ACT college readiness. This year I am doubling down, and I'm also the deputy chief of secondary, so I'm going to brag about our team. And so I'm super proud of them when I told them at the end of last year, beginning of this year, that we ended the year at 40% last year. We can be at 60% by the end of the school year. We're actually at 40% right now when I make the slide, and we're at 38%. It's something that I look at every day. But the team is working really, really hard to get more and more kids college ready. And I've just seen one campus up with Atlas last year. If I'm not mistaken, they were in maybe sub 20% or at 22%, and they are at 77% college ready. And so it is something that is contagious to get kids college ready, and it's just super exciting to see the kids and the teachers really rally to get kids college ready. And I think the access and the opportunities that opens up to them are endless as a result.
There was a consequence for our poor high school academic director. He was forced to shave his beard. That's the commitment he made to his kids. His beard grew for 10 years.
He's been growing out that beard, but I told him you get to grow it one more time until next year. So that was just this week with the shaving of the beard. But it's been super exciting to see so many campuses really successful with getting more kids college ready. In terms of the work we do to obviously stay financially strong and do the work of our mission, kids can't learn if they're not at school, is one, the attendance management process. So one of our strategic initiatives last year was how, as an entire network, how do we get tighter around how we manage and respond to attendance issues. And so as a result, we've talked about the increased attendance that we've seen, but it's been great to just talk to leaders and talk about hey, we have to be really honest at the end of last semester. We weren't really good at those last couple of months of adhering to our process, and we've recommitted to the process. So this is one of the things I think as a network we're getting better at around what has to be standard in terms of processes and procedures. And I think we've got a really good proof point when people adhere to the attendance management guidelines. We can see real results that have impact when it comes to not only attendance but our financial bottom line. And then secondly, with regards to withdrawals, this is tough. This is one of the toughest things. Yes, we've got 70 fewer withdrawals. I would celebrate anything fewer than last year. But we are really working hard this second semester to really make sure we're staying on top of withdrawals so we can double that number. At least so we have some indications as to what does it take to lower, what's it going to take for us to really intentionally lower our withdrawals year over year. And so those are two things that I know Leslie appreciates actually 2 years ago, really talking about, I don't think you guys remember, one of the retreats we talked about, well, post-COVID, it's been hard to get really strong leadership in our schools. And I spent some time with John and Anderson, our former chief people officer, around like in his time and when working with country clubs, what did it take to get strong GMs? And one of the things we felt like we had an opportunity to think about was like our secondary schools. We run separate high school and middle schools, we have 2 different leaders, but we want this strong continuous experience. That's really hard to do. I'm a former high school leader. I probably had plenty no parts of what the middle school leader is doing. And that's usually what happens at all 13 middle schools and 13 high schools. And so we thought about what would it look like if we thought about the secondary experience led by one person, a head of school that's over both middle school and high school. It's much easier to train up 13 strong people than it is 26. And so when thinking about the talent gap that we have over the current space, this was like a pilot that we launched last year with 4 secondary schools, so 4 middle schools and high schools, and the network to see if we had a secondary head of school that ran the entire 6-12 experience. And so we thought that was a really good start. We picked some of our strongest leaders. I was very selective. There were 6 schools originally that I wanted to turn into the pilot, but I need to be really selective and make sure we have the right leaders who could pull off that kind of work. And so that's been a really neat experience to go through. We will not add new schools next year. I think there's still more for us to learn around how to optimize the model. We will then add new schools probably 1 more year from there when we have an opportunity to develop our training programs, what the training looks like, what's preparation look like to get a school community together. And middle school teachers are very different than high school teachers. You're going to think about the cultural implications and how do you bring families along that journey. I think that will help us with the transition between middle school and high school from this one continuous experience. Something as simple as the middle school once has band, and the high school does not have band. That secondary head of schools will understand that means my whole entire secondary will have band. And that, I think, will have impact on whether or not we decide to stay at Uplift because we have some continuous programs in the network. And so that is the, yes.
Are those all in-house positions that you bring up?
Yes,
from
all
Uplift?
in-house.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah, in-house.
Are there hopes that you bring in people from outside? I know that's hard.
Yeah, but I think that because we have some time, and ideally is to scale over time, I think it's the use of Uplift first. I think there's a current leader who's only been with us for a semester, but I see this person has full potential to be secondary head of school very quickly. I think it's just what time do they need to know Uplift. It's usually the toughest thing for people when they come from outside. But I think that there are a lot of people who have experience running K-12 schools, they have a 6-12 school, that could be probably an instant app. Yes, Prep, I think they run a secondary model. Our team is going to go visit them next week to actually see what their model looks like. So I think there are people who've done it before who might, be really good people to consider. But we've never had this challenge before, so we haven't really thought about the profile for experience. So I would say those are the wins for first semester. When thinking about this semester, we've got still a lot of work to do to make sure we deliver on the promises and meet the goals that we established at the beginning of the year. At this point in the year, typically for a managing director, those are our school director, our school principal, managers. They've got some schools who are knocking it out of the park, and they've got some schools who really need their attention. And this is when they need to start differentiating their support and spending 2x the amount of time, 3x the amount of time in schools who need more support. And so each managing director right now, or probably in the last 2 weeks, have made decisions around how they're spending their time, along with our curriculum instruction team. We have different specialists for different content areas who go and offer coaching and support to school leaders. And so we've been really thoughtful around where they're going to spend their time in places where we might have vacancies, we might have teachers who really need to accelerate outcomes. And so that's one of the things right now to drive overall performance. We're differentiating our support and our managing directors are leading that charge. Facilities team is some of the things we talked about this week was how do we make sure the tutorials that those third grade students, if you recall, are tiered tier two. Our quintile 2 and quintile 3 students at those focus in schools are getting 30 minutes of tutoring 3 times a week. And so one of the things that I think has the biggest opportunity, we agree, is that making sure those tutorials are important. And that we keep an eye every week, every 2 weeks, on if the scholars making progress. If they are, great, let's keep going. If they're not, why not? And how do we quickly pivot as opposed to maybe like a 3 or 4 week cycle of tutoring? So how do we make sure we're focused, the tutoring is of high quality, and the coaching that our leaders are getting from the specialists with our team are like aligned to making sure outcomes are really good in this kind of process. And then the other part is thinking forward facing a little bit is summer school. Stephanie Aguilar, our managing director of college, it used to be Daniel, our managing director of academic support and strategy, who does the English learning work, the English bilingual work. I think she came a few years ago. She also oversees summer school. And so one of the pushes that I make her is how do we make sure the students we're targeting in summer school are getting similar supports when they come back in the fall. I think sometimes some kids get a little bit of summer support and then they don't get anything else when they come back in the fall if they need it. And so how do we make sure that kids are getting contiguous support so that it's impactful? And so the summer planning, she's already started that work already, but that is work that we'll continue to flesh out and share with our parents and schools. With working with Daniel and his team, him and I have been working really hard on the education and engineering pathways. We've got a lot of ideas. We're working in partnership with Deborah around who could help us with all these great ideas to get these pathways off the ground. And so we're just continuing to work on those pieces, and as well as, again, the ACT TSA 60% college readiness goal. The secondary team is working on that. Lastly, around attendance is Monday, Friday. So Friday, as Jasmine alluded to, is a really tough day for attendance. People love a 4-day or a 5-day. I can't quite figure out how many days kids are getting on the weekend. Mondays and Fridays have been really challenging for us. At most campuses, some schools have figured it out. We do have a subset of schools, and like we have one of our leaders in middle school share. Okay, on Mondays and Fridays, these are the things we're doing. She said, actually, she's being truthful. I started this 6 years ago. I'm like, my goodness, that's not helpful to a leader who needs an answer tomorrow. But it's definitely a cultural piece, like around like how do you invest your teachers and staff. Like, managing directors are working with their teams on what's going to look different on Mondays and Fridays, and it's only going to get more challenging as the school year progresses. And so once we get towards testing season, we'll probably have a captive audience. Once May gets here, it's going to be really, really difficult, making sure kids come to school on Mondays and Fridays. So we have to start now with expectation setting and all the plans for Mondays and Fridays for the rest of the school year. And that's a re-enrollment. Re-enrollment kicked off the day we got back from break. And our teams across the CMO are working together to really get parents activated. I think the goal we set for ourselves is 90% by spring break. I think we're 65% yesterday. Is that right? I think that's great. We're going about 2 or 3% each day for this week so far. And so I think that, once we get to that 75 rank, 75 benchmark, I think it'll probably get a little bit harder to get that last 15%. So right now schools are working on how are you going to get that last 15%. You're going to get through 2-3% each day, but that last 15% is the one you have to work really hard for. The school this morning at Uplift, they've got high beginning director. They do really good enrollment. They had all sorts of things, but they also are leading one of the leading secondaries in the network because they've been really creative around getting that enrollment for families. And then lastly, just the transition grade programming. 5th to 6th grade, 8th to 9th graders will be often lose students. And so how do we make sure we're improving the retention between those grade levels? This is the time of year if leaders haven't done it already in the fall. They're being really intentional on their touch points with 5th graders and their touch points with 8th graders to bring them on to high school. One of the things I think that we've discovered is that we could do a better job working with our leaders when they did a no, I'm not interested in returning to my Uplift school. They could use some salesman training around how can I turn your no into a yes, with scholars. And so that's somewhere that do you have those conversations? How do you train your staff on having those conversations? To give kids and families to think more broadly around their choice, and also just to play up and sell their school, because I think that's something that we probably as a collective not that good at. I know for sure in second areas, and that's what the school leaders are working on to change. What's around the corner? So other things that's like on the other side of my brain that's left is around our strategic planning process. So we kicked it off in probably December, January, thinking about what the priorities will be for the upcoming year. We have subcommittees. One of the things I thought we got really good feedback and really good results so far was just bringing more senior leaders into the planning process. So this is like, last year was like the first year that I think Gab and I did not drive our strategic priorities. We had senior leaders partner across the organization to craft and to drive those priorities, who are the people who are outward facing in those priorities. And one, that's been wonderful to not have to have that list. But two, I think that they've been way more effective, and I think that the two of us have worked with them and meeting some of those priorities. I think that we are continuing with that same way of working going into this year. Obviously, with the legislative session, outcomes like still pending, working in close partnership with Leslie on all the different financial scenarios. Our leaders will start their staffing planning coming into in 2 weeks. And so our teams will work really closely together to help prepare them for that process, so that they know how to think about their staffing depending on the different scenarios we may have to consider. Innovation pilots, we love great innovation. Our Network AI committee kicks off, actually kicks off in February. Jonathan Day will lead that group along with Zach and Agaba, just talking about policy and use cases for AI, thinking about for next year. We do have a pilot. Gabe and I actually went to a conference last year at ASU GSD by Arizona State University. And it's like everybody you know who's in tech is there, everyone who's not in tech is there. It is a huge networking opportunity, but I actually saw this program called Archie by Digit. It's by Google. It's to help students with math. And so they actually have a beta test that they offer to schools for free. And so up at Kansas secondary students who are in Alpha 1 will begin this like tutoring experience where it helps you with misconceptions and like gives you like step by step, like why did you make this choice? Asking kids questions to get them to like get to the right answer. So we're piloting that as part of test prep for Alpha 1. So I can't wait to share like one what that looks like, but two, how good it is. But it was a really good program, pretty neat. We're looking at many of them that are currently on the market. And then from our dinner dialogue speaker, Dr. Hyde impressed upon me to consider phone-free schools. And so we have gone to visit one of the schools in Richardson ISD, who currently is phone-free. So let's see how that actually works. And so we've been in conversation around like how we could probably launch that with a few of our campuses next year. But I will not name those because that's recording, and so we have to make sure everyone's on the same page before we discuss that a little bit further.
Isn't that on the Texas legislative
It is.
docket, so it might
Correct.
be amplified.
Yeah. That is
It
one
would
of the
make it
things.
a lot easier for you guys.
Yeah, because the pouches are $30 each. And, what I've learned from the people who use it, that kids aren't that great at keeping up with their pouches. And so it becomes like something that costs. And so if the legislation comes through, that would be great.
Because they will pay for that?
Yes.
Oh, right.
We hope.
Yeah.
It's definitely part of the proposal, is funding that. Do you have time to just give us a brief overview of what you observed in the school where they were phone free?
So they have actually been phone free for years, but not in that way, using the pouches. And so their kids are probably used to having to put their phone somewhere. What we observed when we observed the ingress, and so in terms of how kids enter the school, when they all enter, they all have to have their pouches, whether you have a phone or not. They unlock them with a magnet. Someone looks inside to see if there's actually a phone in there, like once you get ready, is there a phone in there or is there something in there? And then if it's not, they kind of like touch it and then they put it, they're like, okay, you don't have a phone today. I think they kind of just do like an eye test. If if it's something there, they lock it, so the administrator actually locks it to make sure that it's and then all the kids go off to class. If you don't have your couch that day, there's a separate entrance for you to enter. So that it's like, okay, you have a phone today, they put your phone in the envelope, they keep your phone for the rest of the day. If they're like, I don't have a phone, it's okay, are you sure? Okay, great, they give us some sort of proof of that. Means I don't have a phone today. They said that like overall it's reduced any sort of like disciplinary things on campus. They're like, kids are so much more engaged, they're like talking to each other in the hallway and in the cafeteria. It's just been a huge like lift for the campus team. One of the things they share is that they do not put the responsibility on teachers to take phones. So kids will have an additional phone. So there's one in the pouch and there's one in their pocket. If that does happen, they don't have the teacher take it away. The teacher is supposed to message the dean or the assistant principal comes in and needs to do that. And I said, like, honestly, school was like, I can't remember, but it's in the thousands of students, not in like 2,000 students. And they said, and like the last week, the assistant principal said, he had one kid who had like a huge issue giving up the phone, which led to, there's like a consequence ladder, but they have a district disciplinary process when it comes to phones. So the one policy for the entire district, we have one kid who like gave them something. But other than that, they said it's been like one of these things they need to be doing for that.
So, and the other thing that the state mandated for last year was the moving on the streets. And I think that there was something about districts needing to evaluate and create policies around just general use of screen time. Is y'all already do that?
No, and I think, you know, I usually go to Alex on these things, like, is this something we have to do? Is that maybe that charter thing that charters don't have to adhere to? Because I don't think we have to
Yeah,
put anything together.
I'm not familiar with something like specific about school time. I'm not, calling that specific. Might be one of those that are school, subject to specific.
Real quick on AI. Just curious if retention phone calls or phone calls are recorded.
I don't think so.
And this is not to do with like AI and help the kids. Recently learned about this, several people have it now. If you have people call the system and record it, there's conversation analytics with AI will listen to the phone calls, and you can just feed the list and say, this phone number, and now you know this person enrolled, and it listens to all the calls that people enrolled, and tell you what they said at different interventions. And so then it'll tell you what you could have done on the calls. So people say that. It's used a lot in plastic surgery and things where it's high barrier to buy, but it's been shown to basically make people more effective and stand out so people say across organizations.
That's pretty neat. I think that's a good suggestion for us to consider. I can also see that it is working.
Yeah. Do you know the other products then?
There's a company local in Nova that does it, INOVA, but it depends on, I think everyone's trying to get it, depends on who you use as your call, your phone call system.
And lastly, I'll just say the last one is just the favorite part of the summer is like honestly guys, like as soon as we finish the year, we would jump into like maybe we get a leadership academy, we might get a 2 weeks break, but we're into leader training. And so we've got to start the planning for those trainings for both leaders and teachers. The teachers are the big ones to like undertake. And so we'll start with the leaders summer training. And then also the last one, and I'll talk more about this later, is just we have to think about our leader pipeline. And so developing, depending on how the legislative session is, developing a program to have more homegrown leadership from our teachers and dean roles to step into the academic role and just get the program off the ground.
Any other questions for Remy? Remy, thank you very much. And again, one is, we sometimes don't get the full picture of the complexity of the operations of the whole system. So just a taste. One thing I'd ask you to do is just reflect on the content. And if there's anything in particular you would like us to follow up on or discuss next time, let us know. So if you want to hear more about AI or what have you, we'll kind of make this, have some continuity and follow through to it from one session to another. But thank you, it's super helpful. We appreciate it. Next item of business, I think, Deborah, just a debrief on the stakeholder luncheon.
Yeah, quick update. First of all, thank you all for attending and inviting guests to attend. I thought that was really great. We had our biggest event ever. We had 102 RSVPs. The majority of them were donors, prospects, or former board members. We had a former board member that said, you know, the time is now for me to re-engage. Her kids had been, she had dropped off the board. So I thought that was a great way to keep people coming back. We had a couple representatives from elected officials' office, and of course, all of you were present, so thank you so much. We had great feedback on Yasmin and Rennie's uses of the program, and you can see some of the quotes yet. We did, there below, we did send up a follow-up email thanking everyone for attending, and then they had the opportunity to click a link for a survey. We haven't received feedback as of yet, so we might have to send it back out. But I did want to see if you all had any feedback for us from the event, anything that you want to share that went well, or that you'd like to see us improve upon, or all of these.
I thought the presentation was terrific. The kids were genuine and, you know, they gave us a really intimate look at what, you know, how they think about things and what they face. And that is very persuasive to people when we're trying to get people to give you money or get involved. You know, so I liked that. The other thing I really, really appreciate about the event is it starts on time, it ends on time, you eat through the presentation, so it's just like, it was not a social event for people. Which,
Well, the first part seems to be.
well, yeah, but that's the appropriate amount.
Right.
You want this stuff done. So anyway, I thought it was a great success. The people that I had are interested in getting involved, you know, or more involved, and it really made the school look good.
And I just wanted to shout out to first Yasmin to say, that whole thing you did without the note, without, everybody was like, wait. And you didn't miss a beat, and you sound excited about what you're doing, so I think that's continued, so thank you. And Renee, you led a great, the students were great, and you have to connect with them, you can tell in that show that day, so thank you.
It's also really nice that they're returning. You know, that says a lot about this school too.
Thank you, and you all also received the invitation to cocktails and conversation with Rob Kaplan and Yasmin. You can attend great, or if you'd like to pass on the invitation, please do so. I'm collecting all the RSVPs, and it was really nice for us that folks who are planning to attend on that 3/11. So again, not a true ask, opportunity just to get to know us a little bit more and really low entry type of way.
Are spouses or significant others
Absolutely.
invited?
Yes, absolutely. If you could all please just let Deborah know if you are bringing any guests, that would help because we are trying to give Rob and his team an exact number of how many to prepare for since he hosts the event. We'd love to have his strongest turnout yet at Wack's Cocktails and Conversations.
It's pretty impressive that he does that and that Justin wrote that.
Yes.
I love that.
One plug, I'll just add, that it's separate from the
Oh, yes, thank you.
but, is the development committee is starting project number 2, which is going to be developing helping Justin develop a microsite for youth donors. So I just want to mention, like, the fiscal at the top of it, yeah, Deborah and the team are doing an amazing job, but again, it is focused on very high givers and traditional giving and foundations and folks that I think the team has done a really great job. So part of what Jessica's project is looking at is how do we get more lower level donors, so like scale smaller giving to be that reliable source of income that can be used at discretion, right? So what we're asking for, even if you're not on the development committee, but you would like to give your feedback, and you don't have to be a specialist in marketing or digital ads or anything like that, you want to give your feedback on what that experience should be. And or if you do work in a company and you do have access in your network to people who do digital marketing and want to invite them to give their insight, we would love to have that. So it doesn't necessarily, you can have a proxy within your company that does the marketing, does social media ads, things like that, looking at it from like a customer acquisition perspective. So let me and or Jessica or Deborah know if you would like to participate or know somebody who may be willing to, and we'd love to have them.
Thank you, Ricky, for that.
Thanks, Randy. Deborah, if any board members or someone else wanted to share the video or any of the written materials with other people that may be interested, should they reach out to you?
Just reach out to me, we can get you a link, or even Yasmin can send out a PDF of the presentation and a link to the video. I'd be happy to.
I thought it was so well done, and again, it's a reflection of such great work that the whole team has
Thank
been
you.
doing for a while.
Same video from Dinner and Dialogue, which we don't think anyone knows, so. It worked out.
It's okay, it works out to have another opportunity to show.
As great an event as it was, when I struck a lot of this, like, this is a great event, if more people were here, I wish I invited somebody else, and so if we,
Please,
if
multiple
there's
ideas.
anything we could share, please.
Yeah, I'll send it out.
Whatever is most efficient.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our next item of business, and here we'll actually be looking for a vote of approval. The facility's going to lead us through a discussion of our targeted school improvement plans. And again, at the end of this discussion, and after questions, we will be taking a vote of approval on this.
Well, good afternoon. I'm happy to see all of you again. And one of my other hats that I wear is the district coordinator of school improvement, which means I'm the direct liaison for Region 10 and Region 11 for our schools and the schools that are in target improvement. So each year we have to make a very robust target improvement plan for those schools. And there are many ways to get on this list. We counted about 32 different ways that you could get on the list, including missing one subgroup, and that would make you part of this list. And once you're on for 2 years. And then our goal is to get you off because it is a lot of work to be part of this. So we call these plans TIP plans, and we work really hard with making sure that we include everything that the state wants us to include. So what we do is we look at all these areas in the circle, and those are the things that are in each plan, and we go into great detail. So in every plan, we use what we call the Effective Schools Framework. And the Effective Schools Framework comes from the state. And in each one of these frameworks, there are 5 levers. And then in each of the 5 levers, there are several essential actions that we have to do. And then in each of the essential actions, there are key priorities that we have to hit, and then there's success criteria. So you can imagine how much work goes into these plans and why we did not lug all the plans in here for you to read individually. But if you need some light reading, if you contact me, I'll be happy to send them to you. So we use these plans all year long. And this year, the state has separated the regions. So in the past, we could either go to Region 10 or go to Region 11. And now we have to do plans for our individual regions wherever the schools sit. So we work with the 2 regions, making sure that we do this. The one thing that I did ask is that we could only attend the meetings at one of the regions instead of me having to go to meetings in both regions. We go to meetings every single month where all the school leaders get trained, and in the last 2 months we had them bring their deans and some of their teacher leaders with them so that we're all hearing the same message and having the same training. So this is done with the diagnostic, and we also have a coach that comes from each region, and then we have a consultant that works with the coaches at our respective regions. So there's a lot of hands on this, a lot of people reading, a lot of work being put into making sure that we get off this list and we're giving the best education we can for the scholars that are sitting in our schools. So here are the schools that are listed, and they're listed by Region 10 and 11, because as we approve them in the board, Region 11 wants the minutes with their name in it, and Region 10 wants the minutes with their name in it. So that's why we've done it this way. All the primary schools that are on this list are also in the Accelerated Learning Program. So, also getting the training from there, they're getting all the extra training from us coming into their schools. And what we were able to do this year was make one plan so that we don't have schools using several different plans. So we're using one plan that covers everything, and that's why it was really important for me to attend the training so that I could make sure we were hitting all the important pieces. What I showed you on the other screen was there were 5 areas, but this year we're really, really focused on 2. Of course, strong school leadership and planning and effective instruction. Meaning the leaders have to be good and then the instruction has to be good in order for us to lift the schools the way we want them to be done. So right now, I'm working with Dr. Jennifer Hood for Region 10 and Dr. Jill Bowser for Region 11. So if you ever see their names, that's who they are, and they're my contacts at the region. And they are both wonderful people, and they really want us to succeed. The good news is that 4 of our schools are in their 2nd year, which means we made our goals last year, so they should be dropping off. And then our goal is to work so the other 2 make their goals, and then they can drop off also. What we're finding as we're going to the region is that the requirements are getting harder and harder and more stringent from the state. So our goal is not to have more schools enter into this. Okay. Any questions?
Does the government give extra help, meaning basically money?
No. They give lots of requirements, but no funding to support that requirement.
And never have?
Not for this program.
Well,
ESSER funds were, but
so, for the next school year, so this TA has separate like grant funds that they offer. And they may set a criteria that in order to access those grant funds, you may have to be one of these schools. So there is access to those. However, it's often sometimes tied to adopting a new curriculum, but there's contingencies that go along with it. And so it's no, they don't give anything, but those schools will get preference in some of the grants that TDA has, but it has to meet other criteria.
and all 6 schools applied for the grant.
John, I want to ask for a motion, if you could just please include Charter School in Region 10 and Region 11 to see if we should have it captured, please.
Any questions? With no questions, do I have a motion to approve the TA school targeted improvement plans for Region 10 and Region 11 as presented?
Second.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you for all your hard work. Our next item, which Leslie's going to lead us through, I'll point you back to Yasmin's introductory comments, but in a prior meeting, we approved a request for, I think, $90 million of basically bond guarantee money. And upon further analysis, and as Leslie explained, we would like to request an additional 5 on top of that, just to maximize our flexibility. So I hope I didn't already get the test answer, but Leslie, what do you?
Yeah, so I did just provide a quick snapshot because we had our Finance and Strategy Committee meeting. Our focus really is on continuing to update where we're at with the 2025 school year budget. We are in good shape. We are watching that closely. If there is some potential upside, because we have seen some better than initially budgeted numbers around our average daily attended scholars in the school. We're tracking that very closely. In the fact, if we do end up with some upside there, I'm working very closely with Remy and the team to prioritize where we would reinvest those things, and we will keep you guys closely in tune with that. In regards to the bond issuance, we basically are continuing to watch our interest rates very closely. The Finance and Strategy Committee is staying super close to it, and will continue to update them. Overall, we need this group's alignment and the board's alignment to move forward with issuing 95 million of PSF backed funds. So basically, the TEA, we have to submit an application for the public school funds that are available to Texas. So in order for us to meet a timeline to issue bonds in the mid-April timeframe, we're submitting that application now. So we're going to continue to stay close to the interest rates and see what happens. This does not at all commit us to issuing these funds. We can make that decision still, but it will give us some leeway to have some cushion and make sure that we're prepared to do so if it makes sense for the organization.
So as in how to relate what you're asking for a motion for is to increase the application from 90 to 95 million
Yes,
dollars.
so we-
This is applying for basically bond guarantee funds from the permanent school fund.
Exactly.
And we approved the 90, but we want to up it to 95 just to maximize flexibility.
Yes. This will give us just some extra cushion if needed.
And just to clarify, there would be a separate vote before we actually do a refinancing transaction. That'll all go through the finance committee, and
Exactly.
they're all very close to us on this as we stand. So with that, do I hear a motion? Could I have a motion to approve the permanent school fund resolution as presented?
So moved.
Your second? Second. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is unanimously approved. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for staying so on top of all of our financials in partnership with the operating team and others. And the fact that y'all just do this work so closely together is a great comfort to us as a board. So thank you. Our next item will be with Amanda for an update on enrollment.
I'm not sure, last month we were at, so I wanted to give an update, as what we said for your enrollment. We are on track there. We are really focused on next year's enrollment. As Reagan said, it's all hands on deck focusing on re-enrollment. This was pulled last Friday, so, we've already picked up to 50%, and we're tracking towards 80, 90% by
converting, I don't know, together 75 applications a week on, on average, and converting a lead that we get into an application. So those things I think are impact like, I don't think we may not continue there. Or we may rethink it, or, do some evaluation of how we do that.
I think we went into all those recommendations knowing that some would
Sure.
stick and some would be ones where it was good for us to try and capture the learning and we might not continue them. So I feel really good overall with the things that are sticking and the fact that we're up on applications and continue to be a really tough environment to do so. I was telling Amanda, like, I feel really good where we're at right now.
I mean, that we engaged in marketing firms this year, tell us about the effectiveness of the campaign.
Yeah, we've run multiple campaigns that, I think we have found to be pretty impactful. They're essentially tracking by medium, right, what we're looking at overall. And we're essentially like making, edits based on the recommendations, right? So, for example, we had a standalone Spanish campaign, right? But as of late, we're not really seeing that, that's actually converting, as many applications. And so we're essentially going to shift those dollars. We see holidays as, people aren't actually applying, so let's turn, the dial way down on the holidays and get back up in other areas. So, I think they've been really impactful because I think, previous work was really looking at all applications that would come in, no matter where it's getting it. We know the biggest driver is word of mouth, and so it's hard to know what's effective. I think with the agency now, they're really looking at the data and pivoting based on that. From little things like, let's dial down on the holidays to, let's rework the Spanish to, hey, let's test this, right? We tested, 2 different video mediums to see which one was more impactful, right? Found this one to be more impactful, right? So we're moving in that direction. So, and, right, we'll continue to watch and drive applications. We also ask them to evaluate the work that the team is doing. We do a lot of more granular campaigns internally, so we're doing tons of digital campaigns, and so we ask them to do an evaluation just to see, make sure we're not cannibalizing each other, or so they came back with positive feedback in there, and also, a few upgrades that we can do. So, all I think, positive on the agency.
Amanda, thank you. I don't know how long I've been on the board, but I don't think there have been many meetings where I've looked at the enrollment numbers tracking well in the budget for a while. So I know it's a very challenging environment, and I think it's just a credit to the great work everybody's doing, but particularly your group.
And I think that's part of all of our collective teams is kind of maybe taking more of a realistic approach to what we think we can get to get that later instead of hoping that data will change.
Yeah.
In the future.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Our next item of business, I'm going to hand it off to Alex for one administrative item.
Yeah, we just have a very quick administrative action item to approve the minutes from December 10, 2024 board meeting. Those were sent out by Yasmin. If there are not any questions on those minutes,
I hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented. So moved. Do I have a second? Second from Laura. Any opposed? The minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you, Alex. We're going to go into closed session briefly. Just before we do that, and before I read what I need to read, just some of the stuff that we presented. One benchmark for all of us that we should be proud of. We're talking about getting to 60% college readiness. I think the county average is 30. Okay. I probably measured less rigorous than we measure it.
We will not validate our relative to the county average.
So if you have 60 or even progress in that direction, it is, to my understanding, it would be you're doubling a less rigorously measured benchmark. So that'd be fantastic. Not holding each other number just yet, but I didn't want to skip over that and not have it in some context.
Since you went back to the 30, I'd like to back to one that I
Yeah.
forgot to ask about earlier. The projected college completion model, or
Uh-huh.
the 44. Can you remind us just what the recent record is of that metric calculated the same way? I understand what it is, like a modeled result based on
The
where the
estimated
students.
college completion based on where they go, their demographic, and the college completion
Right.
rates of
So
those.
it's a quantitative
Yes,
model.
it's a quantitative
So
model.
what is the model that's projected for our, college enrollment pattern in the last couple of years?
That's where we currently are right now, taking into
Then-
account all those cohorts. That is where we are
That
currently
is
at.
backward-looking data.
Yes, yes, and we'll then, of course, add in the seniors of 2025 as they make their selections.
And would we have a near-term target on that? We have goal?
Yes, we do. And I'll have to go back and pull exactly what that near-term goal is for. It would be around 45 to 50%. And we're on target for where we wanted to be because if you recall, we had a pretty meaningful dip during the COVID years. So we are getting back up to what our historical numbers were.
Good. The time is now 5:38 PM, and the board will retire to closed session to discuss intruder detection audit report finding pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.076. The time is now 5:41 PM, and the board will, the time is now 5:41 PM, and the board is back in open session. No action or vote was taken during closed session. Anything else from the board? No adjournments. The time is now 5:41, and this meeting of the Uplift Board of Trustees is adjourned.